from the hats that we wear. And as engineers, we wear hard hats. But today, soft, for software. The idea of quality assurance revolves around evolving relationships, taking care of people, growing engineers, learning from your mistakes, and building ecosystems. These are the words of the people behind me, and they will be leading you through a mystery of sorts and talking about one specific hat that you will wear. I give you Jenny Bramble and Adrian Dunston.
Hey, Dev, we're getting reports of timeouts in the logs. Looks like we've got a dead connection.
I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences.
We seem to be getting a lot of dead connections recently. It seems like somebody should look into it.
Yeah, maybe somebody should, but I got my own problems. Besides, I don't do that sort of thing anymore.
Seems to me like if a person lets too many dead connections go, eventually something inside them dies as well. Anyway, I'll see you around.
I'm a developer. I got a sweet little epic going, lots of little tickets to take care of, but darn it, she's right. It's a dirty world out there. It's time to put my detective hat on.
Hi, y'all, and welcome to the Detective Hat. We're going to talk about investigating production issues. My name is Jenny Bramble. I am a senior engineering manager currently looking for my next role. So if you're hiring, please let me know. If you hate me, please let your enemies know. I'll be glad to work with them. I have too many cats, too many rabbits, too many birds. My pronouns are she and her. I've been working in and around Elixir for about 5, 6-ish years now and really love the community, I love the language, and I love building people up within it. You can find me on Blue Sky and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Hi, I'm Adrian Dunston. I've been writing software for like 25 years. The last 8 have been in Elixir. I absolutely adore Elixir. I've been a manager and director person for about 5 years, and I'm colorblind. So if you're wondering why these markers are arranged this way, it's because to me they look like that.
And if you didn't notice a difference, you're probably also colorblind. The purpose of this presentation is to make you better at solving production issues in a way that grows your team's capabilities instead of stressing you out and making you cry in the car before work.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about production issues in general. We got like 5 sections here, and we're starting a little bit late, so we're going to be talking kind of quickly, especially through the early sections. As we get going, it will get meatier as we go. So we're going to talk about, like, in general, what are production issues like, what are our perspectives on them, and then changing hats. What is the different perspective that you need to bring, different from testing, different from development, to production issues?
Then we're going to talk about the detective's notebook. What should you be writing down? How should you be writing it down and communicating it? After that, my favorite part, the chase. Lots of techniques in there.
Indeed, and we'll be finishing up with communication and follow through, 2 very important parts of every production incident.
So part 1, production issues.
Before we get started on part 1, we should tell you that there are a lot of things that you're going to want to do in your organization to make sure that you don't have a lot of production issues all the time. I absolutely recommend the book Accelerate, especially the first section. This book has been around for a while, and they have great advice, proven advice on setting up your CI and CD, on making sure that you're watching your DORA metrics, how quickly can you get a fix out. The advice here is absolutely solid, and if you're not doing this stuff, there's only so much we can help you. 12-Factor App is a website that has a lot of the same perspectives as well.
But sit down there in the back, you don't have to leave. If your organization isn't perfect, we're still gonna have a ton of information and a ton of great stuff for you. First perspective, production issues are a game that you can win.
I love games. I love playing all sorts of games. As a developer, I really love fixing a problem. I love when that last test comes up green. I love pushing to production. That's where I get a lot of my joy. When I'm playing this game, though, I have to get my joy from a slightly different place. It's not fixing the problem that brings me joy, it's each individual clue on the way. Because if I can only get joy from fixing the problem, I'm gonna spend the whole time stressed way out until the very end and then collapse. If instead I enjoy the process and every clue is fun, then I'm having fun the whole time.
It doesn't mean that you shouldn't take production incidents seriously. This is a serious thing, but there's also some joy in it. There's some fun in it. There's a way to help reduce a lot of the stress. One of the major things that I like about production incidents is that old scars are shared history. When you come into a team, you start to hear about the team's oral traditions, about the team's history, their little in-jokes, the things that have happened to them. The story I tell all the time is about the week before I joined Papa. I went over to Adrian's house for dinner, and he was having a production incident down in his basement. So I pulled up a chair, and I'm like, hi, I'll be director of engineering tomorrow. What are we doing today?
Some of these are like, well, this issue's bad, but at least it's not visit scopes.
Oh,
and everybody goes, oh, visit scopes. Like, yeah, that brings us close together. We all had to sit through that. Also, scars build seniors. You don't want to have a bunch of production incidents in your organization, but you do want to have a lot of production incidents in your work history. You want to have fixed problems. When I'm interviewing somebody, when I'm trying to bring on a senior engineer, and they say, oh, I joined a company that had a bunch of production incidents all the time, but over time we got them to smooth sailing, that's somebody that I want. I want somebody who can weather the storm and build a system that's better because of it.
This is a lot about building up your toolbox. Your toolbox should have a lot of things in it because you've seen a lot of things, or because you've talked to people that have seen a lot of things, or come to a conference. Here's another perspective. When you get into a production incident, brace yourself for hard truths. Some of your team's code is broken in ways you could not even imagine.
There's a fun part in a lot of these movies and the old detective stories where they're like, no, Jimmy, don't go there. There's some things you don't want to know.
And he goes anyway, he just rushes in, and he finds out, and he's like, oh, wow, huh, did not want to know that.
There's some things you don't want to know. It's your fault, some of this stuff. We're going to talk about fault in a second, but if you brace for that mindset, if you go looking for, what did I do this time, then you're going to overcome some of the mental biases that otherwise would block you from finding the issue. So brace for the hard truths.
This brings us to the first law of Detective Hat. All production issues are a failure of process, not people.
Now, people wrote the code, but people also tested the code. People decided that this feature was worth the risk of putting it out. There's a whole chain of process that gets a feature out to production that causes a production issue. And if I happen to know that Stubert wrote this bug, like, I'm not going to point to Stubert in the room when we're trying to solve this bug. And if somebody mentions somebody's name in particular, I say, yes, yes, but all production issues are a failure of process. After we're done fixing this, we're going to look over at the process and see how we could have improved this.
One of the things we love to say is you fix process, you grow people. So through your production incidents, you should be growing as a person, growing as a technologist, and we should be examining our processes and saying, where can we make these a little bit better?
So let's talk about changing hats. It's a different perspective. We want you to kind of stop what you're doing for a second and start approaching this problem in a new way. Somebody comes in asking for help. There's something wrong. You don't have a lot to go on, so your first instinct is going to be to tell them to buzz off. You got stuff that you're doing. Maybe that's not even a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not a problem. They've talked about this like for hours.
This brings us to our second law of Detective Hat. Believe the problem is real until you can prove that it isn't.
You never want someone to come to you and for you to tell them to buzz off. Even if what's happening doesn't seem to be a real problem, you need to tell them, yes, I believe you, I'm going to look into it. Assuming that the thing came in through your correct processes. If it's just someone siding up to your desk, maybe that's not right, and that's a process we can fix.
If they have a problem, and you tell them that they don't, now they have two problems.
And one of the problems is you.
Coming to engineering with a problem takes a little bit of effort. It takes a little bit of backbone. Yeah, people don't like coming and telling engineers that something's messed up. So if they did, you say thank you for coming and telling us. You don't say, I'm going to drop everything right away and jump in on this, but you accept that there is a problem and you say that you're going to go through process through channels.
Because if you don't, they're going to stop trusting you. And if they stop trusting you, they're going to stop talking to you. And you have now lost major visibility into your systems. If your operations and your support folk are no longer talking to you, you're not going to find out about an incident until it's real bad. One of the things I was very proud about at Papa is that I could generally tell you an incident was coming 30 minutes before it was because the vibes were off in support. And that is important.
This can be very simple. It can be the difference between saying, oh, that's nothing, that's probably just a false positive, to saying, oh, that might be a false positive, but that's a problem too. We don't want false positives. We'll look into that. Just a slight shift.
The decision isn't, is this really impacting people? It's, can we live with that impact?
A lot of times the answer is going to be yes. Like, yes, I hear you, that is a problem. I'm taking it to folks, we're looking over it. Okay, we've assessed the risk involved in this being an ongoing problem, and we've decided this is gonna have to be an ongoing problem for a while. That is a business decision that people can take. So when you take people seriously, you're not making promises, you're just taking them seriously.
Yep. Part 3, the detective's notebook. If you don't have pen and paper out, now's a good time.
Third law is write things down as you go. Incidents are twisty-turny, especially the really advanced ones. You're going to find out a lot of information, and if you're not writing it down, you're not creating value.
If you don't write it down, it's not real. If you don't write it down, you can't hand it off when you get into hour 16 and you need lunch. You have to write it down.
And if you do, you don't know all of the places it'll be useful. It'll be useful in the postmortem. It'll be useful pasting in a status. You don't know who's going to come up behind you and read old detective notebooks and learn about your system. So what goes in there?
We start with, what's the problem? Write down the problem exactly as they've told it to you. Don't put your interpretation in. Write down the thing they reported. Copy and paste that bad boy in. The problem statement is going to be a living thing. You can modify it as you go, but you want to have that original statement because there might be a kernel of gold in there.
Yeah, the problem at the top also lets you know when you're done with the incident. If you wrote down exactly what the problem was and you investigated 800,000 things and then you go back to the top and you realize like, oh, that original thing, that's taken care of. Oh, like we're done. Like let's wrap this up and do postmortem. What's the problem at the top?
We want to think about impact. We've said that scars build seniors. Production incidents are a great way to start building up your senior mindset. You're not just thinking about this moment in your life, you're thinking about the downstream effects of what you're seeing. What are we losing? How many people are affected? Is it touching the data?
That's a big important issue. Like, if it only happens every once in a while and it's only affecting a narrow set of people, but it's polluting your data, it is a big problem. We've had a situation where we had to bring the whole system down for half a day in the middle of the day because it was polluting our data. And we know that when we fix the problem, that's going to be so easy compared to unpolluting the data. So as you're taking down what is the problem, note the reach, how many people, how bad is it, and is it touching aspects of your organization that are going to be really hard to clean up later. Interviewing the witness, this is a major step. You found the problem, you've got a person right in front of you who is currently the world's leading expert on this problem. Ask him stuff.
This is generally a montage because it is incredibly boring to watch a police procedural. Yeah, it's incredibly boring to watch a police procedural where they ask 4 people the same question and 3 people are like,
The questions that you're asking are, what is the expected behavior? When you were doing this, what did you expect to find? Okay, cool, what did you actually find?
That sounds like a bug report.
It does. It turns out bug report phrasing is very helpful.
Look at me, I'm very useful.
What does it look like in terms of screenshots?
Screenshots and anything else they can give you. Can you watch them do it? Can they provide a video? I had a lot of my ops folks trained to open DevTools. Not the most useful thing all the time, but occasionally you would get just the right thing out of that DevTools and be like, aha, Thought it was you.
Seriously, when people from our operations group would put in Slack, oh, I'm having this issue, and they would paste a screenshot with their browser dev tools open, be like, ha, Jenny got to you. Good. All right. We got something to work with. When did this happen? How often does this happen? These are also important questions that we're going to come back to over and over again.
Because that is in your logs. And how can we make it happen again? Do you have reproduction steps, or are there none? And a lot of times it's hard for folks that aren't super technical or are afraid of engineering. Please stop biting the support guys, I guess. I don't know. To say, I don't know how to make it happen again. So make that an okay statement.
Is there somebody else I should talk to? That's really important, because once you've finished talking with this person, you try to figure it out and you can't, you're all of a sudden at a dead end. But if you have other people you can talk to, you can get a fresh perspective on the same problem.
This has worked really fantastic for me as I've been searching for a new job. Asking at the end of talking to folks, hey, is there someone else I should talk to? Someone else in your organization, someone else you know who is hiring? Help a girl out. And people are generally very interested in fixing production issues, so they want to lead you to the next person that's got a clue.
So that's what's the problem, impact, some initial information, some screenshots from folks. Next comes potential causes. And that
Potential causes.
The first word is carrying a lot of weight there, because this could be caused by a bunch of things. You're not sure, but if you don't title it potential causes, you will assume that the first thing that you thought of is the thing that's causing the problem.
You will anchoring bias right on that bad boy.
Yep. List them out. After that is
complications. Sorry. After that is complications. What else is going on? Again, we're talking senior mindset here. We're talking building a really great picture of the incident. Is there something else happening that other people should know about? Okay, we're not able to log in. We're not making money. Seems pretty simple. Are there other things that are going on? What is this incident preventing us from doing that we normally would see at this point?
Sometimes a complication is just like, huh, that's funny. I wonder, how is that related? Sometimes you'll be going on and you'll find out that this complication is actually a potential cause. So keeping it in the notebook and keeping it lower down is important. Next is unanswered questions.
This is one of my favorites. I've worked very hard at Papa to kind of remove myself from the incident procedures, because I would just come in. I love them. I'm sorry, I do. So having someone with a Google Doc that had a whole bunch of unanswered questions, I could do a quick old drive-by and look and see, are there any questions I know the answer to? And I generally have a very good understanding of our systems and what's going on. So if you put these questions in, I can put a comment in your Google Doc that says, here's an answer for that. And I do it as comments, because that'll send a notification to the person who owns the Google Doc.
That was a big deal. I like to keep my notes in Obsidian, so when I'm running an incident, I'll have like a Zoom going and I'll be screen sharing my Obsidian notebook as I go. But when Jenny came in, she was like, why don't you move that to a Google Doc? And then people can be going in parallel and answering some of these questions. That's been really nice. Next is tomorrow's problems. So I'm going to back up just a second. You'll notice that there's an order of importance here. What's the problem is the most important thing. Unanswered questions, a lot less important. Tomorrow's problems is at the bottom.
Tomorrow's problems are important tomorrow. They're not important today. This is when someone comes to you in the middle of the incident and they go, well, if you'd only done this, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. Like, cool, that wonderful, love that for you. Not currently helpful. So you drop that down into tomorrow's problem. It's not that you're brushing them off, you're just brushing them off really politely.
There's two sides to it. You're brushing them off today, but at your postmortem or at another time, you will want to come through and do follow through on tomorrow's problems to help build trust in the organization. That way, the next incident, when you put something in tomorrow's problems, they'll believe you and they'll let it go for now. This is also a good place to put, like, where should we have more observability in the future? What are some things, what are some unrelated bugs that have come up while discussing this, because we're talking to ops and we don't do that very often.
So that's our detective's notebook. What's the problem? What are potential causes? What complications are we seeing? What are our unanswered questions? And what's tomorrow's problem?
What's tomorrow's problem? The chase.
Ooh, my favorite part. Model the incident. A lot of what we're going to be talking about in this next section is how do we create a model of the incident. One of the things I say a lot is testers hold the mental model of the systems in our minds. We want to gift that to you so that you can hold a model of the incident in your mind.
Now, a lot of your incidents are going to be, you get a report, you write down probable causes, you go and look at the data, you figure out which one, you push a fix, it's fixed, cool, and you write it up and you're done. But when that's not the case, when something drags on for a while, the techniques for modeling the incident become more and more important.
We're going back to our first law here. If this was real, how would I prove it? Assume it's real, prove it.
Somebody in ops said that our folks aren't getting text messages when we schedule a visit with them. Well, if that was real, then we wouldn't have anything in communication logs. Oh, we don't. Okay, if it was real, then we wouldn't have any logs in Twilio either.
No.
Oh, we don't. Cool. This is pretty good evidence that this is real. If we fixed it, how could we tell? Those logs would start showing up again.
And what other problems has this problem caused? Again, we're thinking about downstream effects. If folks aren't getting the text messages for their visits, maybe we're having a higher miss rate on visits. That text message has the visit ratings in it. Well, now we're not getting ratings. Okay, marketing is going to need to know that because they're using those ratings in the current social media campaign. What other things are going on because this incident is happening, and who needs to be informed?
Development and testing is an expansive mindset. As a developer, you're designing a system from a kernel out to, like, how is this going to work? As a tester, you're looking at what are the expected behaviors and what are the follow-on effects, and does this system actually meet these expected behaviors?
Incidents are contractive. You are drawing a box around a particular part of your system, and you're making that box smaller and smaller and smaller until it pinpoints exactly what you need to know, what you need to fix, what's going on here.
And again, with the hairier things, you have to come at it from this mindset because otherwise you're going to spin out and things are going to go days instead of hours. A major factor in that is collect doubt and rule it out. This is a technique that I like to use. It goes like this.
Write down everything they tell you. What have they told you? Write it down in your notebook, exactly as they did, as they said it to you. Write it down.
Don't believe a word of it. They're users. They're sometimes they're testers. Sometimes they're folks in product or in management. They don't necessarily know what they're talking about. They have their perspective. We believe that there is a problem, but we don't necessarily believe what they think the solution is or what's causing the problem. And if they say this only ever happens before 10 a.m., there might be something they don't know.
Verify the important facts. As technologists, we are good at looking at a problem and pulling out the things that are super important about it. This is a moment where you can start saying, okay, are they describing a symptom? Are they describing a problem? Are they describing a solution? What's going on here? Let's verify that.
And the way that we're trying to verify, again, is collect doubt and rule it out. So when they say, this only happens before 10 a.m., cool. The very first thing that I want to do is to find an example where this happened at 11:30. I want to rule out the things that they're telling me so that I don't have a bunch of red herrings hanging out and distracting me. Negative information is more powerful than positive information. If you can completely rule something out, it is likely to stay ruled out. If you learn a new fact, that fact may not be relevant and it may not stand up as well to scrutiny. It's weird, but when you can rule something out, it generally stays that way. And when you find like proof, oh, it's only proof on Tuesdays.
When you are ruling things out like this, write it down. Have I said write it down at all?
A little bit,
a couple of times here? Write it down. Put that SQL statement in Slack so that someone can look at it and be like, ooh, is that a greater than or less than? Put it in a place where people can look at it and also run it and use it to inform some of their own decisions. If you've got proof, write it down so everyone has proof.
During an incident, I will say, this only happened 68 times. I'll paste in the SQL statement that proves this only happened 68 times. And the next time this happens again or something nearby happens again, I'll remember and I'll be able to find that in our chat history or find that in the documentation that I'm writing. We're ruling out potential causes. Collect out and rule it out.
You want to make sure that you're not too precious about your potential causes. I have seen people roll into an incident and be like, it's absolutely this thing. And I'm like, no, it probably isn't. No, I think it's these 14 other things over here. And like, no, it must be this thing. And they won't let it go. And that's really hard to deal with in an incident because you have to be open-minded. You have to make sure that you can rule things out, not just cling to them.
Yeah. Also, sometimes they'll cling to it because, well, it's still definitely a problem. Cool, it's tomorrow's problem, or it's a complicating factor. Something has stolen focus. Silly machines. Cool, reproduce the problem. This is probably where you jumped immediately, and a lot of times it will be. You get a report, you're pretty sure you know how they got to that state, you jump in and reproduce the problem. Awesome, great. Sometimes, though, you're in a situation where you need a test environment to reproduce the problem, or reproducing the problem is going to take a lot of steps, or you're not sure exactly how they did it. As you're going through and poking, think like a tester, write down the steps that you're taking, because if it's 50 steps and you get through and the problem actually was caused by step 25 and you didn't write it down, you haven't gotten anywhere.
Because the next thing we're going to do is keep reproducing the problem. This is a fantastic place to pull in your testers, pull in your product folk, pull in your support folk. Let the developers do the developer-y work that they're doing and have someone else start reproducing this to find the scenarios. Because we're going to look at what devices is this happening on, what browsers is this happening on, are there a particular account type that this is happening, is there a location, what kinds of inputs, times a day, who's excited about daylight savings time coming? Except you, anyone from Arizona and parts of Indiana.
Nice. Yes, sometimes the problem only happens on certain browsers. Sometimes it only happens with certain account types. Keep reproducing the problem. Again, we're trying to draw a box around it so that we can squish it until we find the core.
Because if more scenarios we've got, the more things we can compare. We can say, it happens in these 5 scenarios, but not these 2. What's the difference between them? You are going to very, very quickly find out what the differences are, and that's going to help you narrow that box down.
Recently, I've been dealing with visit scheduling. We would find a problem. It would be in this dozen visits, but not that dozen visits. And so I'm looking in the database line by line and finding like, oh, the recurrence ID is set here, but not. Oh, it's a recurring visits issue. This is only happening when we schedule recurring visits. Cool. That compare and contrast is really helpful.
The next technique is interrogate the data, because y'all do have lots of data and observability in your systems, right? Oh.
Hope so.
If you're looking analytics, events, and logs, any of your product metrics, you want to build a timeline of what's happening. What are you seeing in the logs around the time this is happening? And if you've got something like Mixpanel and you can identify a single user, it'll build the timeline for you. It's like, here's everything that we know this person did. Again, we're looking for, is there something interesting about this? Is it a particular time of day, a particular time of month? We would have issues that would happen in the first half of the month that didn't happen in the second half of the month because people are doing different things at different times. Take that data and squeeze every last little bit of information out of it.
A lot of times you can look over your funnel and see step 1 works fine for everybody, step 2 is fine, step 3, it's gone. What happened at step 2.5? Oh, I really wish I had some observability at step 2.5, and that goes in tomorrow's problems. We need to build more observability in. Or
add logs.
You could add a log right now. Like you're in the middle of an incident, you can add a log and deploy it again if you have CI/CD set up appropriately. You can just add observability in situ and go on.
It's incredibly important to remember that you can do this. Generally, adding a log is not going to complicate your incident. Put that verbosity in there. Put something in there that gives you a lot of visibility. You can always take it out later if you decide you don't need it.
Yeah, if it's too complicated, like using the phrase in situ all of a sudden. Another technique is to know your users. What is their situation? What are their motivation? What are their starting assumptions? In the scheduling visit space, if the problem is happening on a Monday, I happen to know we schedule a bunch of recurring visits on Monday. If it's happening on Friday, well, they're closing out visits. They're starting to do payroll and so forth. So just knowing those patterns in advance, actually knowing my users, talking with our operations folks, helps me figure these things out faster.
Your product team and your design team may have user personas. Go ahead and familiarize yourself with them, because what we're really looking for is their expectations. What do users expect to happen in the systems? What do we think that they're going to be doing? A lot of times a production incident is a difference between what we think they want and what they actually are expecting to have happen. The difference between a feature and a bug is often a press release.
Sometimes what's in the director VP's head is different from what's in the user's head or the product person's head, and so you can find the bug between two people, not in the system itself.
We are probably going to run over. It is 12:21. If y'all are really desperate for lunch, you can definitely leave at 12:25, except the people online. I assume you're already snacking. Just letting y'all know, we're going to keep going.
Made-up examples help illustrate the issue. If we're coming down to it and I can't figure out from the data or from what people have told me what's going on, I'll start just making up scenarios. Every other weekly visits.
Yeah. If you know something that might be similar to what they're experiencing, describe it to them and see if that is also happening. And you own the code base. Maybe not you personally, but y'all own the code base. Make a change, throw the switch, see what happens. If you're not going to make it worse, try something. You might make it better. You might learn something. A lot of times we're really scared to push code during an incident because what if something bad happens? Y'all, something bad has already happened. That ship has sailed.
Yeah. Now, you'll want to make sure that you're only pushing one change, because how did you put it? If you push 14 changes and it fixes the problem, great. You fixed one problem and created 13 unknown issues. So one change at a time, push it out there, see if that affects things, go from there. Scientific
Feature
method.
flags, environment variables, any way that you can turn this stuff off super quickly. If you've got a really fast rollback, that's also great. You do need to be able to roll back pretty quickly for a lot of this.
Yeah, again, the Accelerate book, good stuff. Go back and ask the incisive follow-up question. A lot of times, if I'm pretty sure I know what the problem is, I'll go back to the witness and say, hey, was the badge gold or green on the page when you did this? And they're like, oh,
see green.
No, I'm pretty sure those are the same thing. But to users, they're different. And when they say, oh, it was green, I'm like, aha, I knew it.
Identify your assumptions. We're all making assumptions throughout this incident. We're trying to move quickly, and one of the ways we move quickly is we use stereotypes, we use assumptions. And you really want to be able to step back from some of that and say, okay, what are we assuming about this? Let's write it down. Are we assuming that people aren't logged in as admins?
Are we assuming that our database is appropriately indexed or has foreign key constraints? That one's bit me a bunch of times. I keep assuming that we've cleaned up after ourselves.
We have not.
In the early days, we did not.
No.
One of my favorite assumptions is nobody is currently attacking us.
Certainly, those are not enemy soldiers at the gate.
Oh my goodness. Part 5, communication and follow through.
Fourth law, communicate your status as you go. The thing I say here is push your status to me. Do not make me pull the status from you. During a slow burn incident, maybe this is a couple of times a day. Maybe at 9 a.m. you say, here's where we are. You'll have another update at 4:30 Eastern. In a high intensity incident, can be every half hour. And I know you're like, oh, come on, I'm going to have to pull my head out of what I'm doing every half hour. But if you're not communicating, if I can't see you doing what you're supposed to be doing for the incident, I can't communicate that to the other people. And as a manager, as a director, part of my job is to protect the bubble that you live in. I don't want the CEO coming to my developers and saying, what are you doing? I want him to come to me, and I want to be able to tell him really quickly, here's the status, here's what's going on. Keep your detective notebook in a public place, post your status in Slack, and make sure that you're being clear about when your next update is coming.
Other parts of if you're in a large organization, other parts of your organization might be making decisions based on how this incident is going. They might be, okay, we're gonna hit the phone trees and start telling users, so getting these updates is really important. No news is still news. If you report every half hour, we still don't know what's causing this, we're working on it, we'll tell you again in a half hour, that's helpful. As a director, I want to be able to hand off something to somebody and know that it's going to be taken care of. And one of the ways that I know that is, like Jenny was saying, they're pushing status to me. I don't have to go and ask them for it.
And hedge every statement.
Nope, I checked everything is technically not correct. Nope, I checked everything unless there's something I don't know about. When I was, like early career, I worked for a consulting group and I would call up our customers and say, well, I fixed that bug. And 5 minutes later, they would call back and say, no, you didn't, it happened again. And what I learned was to say, that behavior is not currently occurring from what I can see, please verify.
What you want to do here is say fact-based statements. Don't talk about your emotions, don't talk about your feelings. I'm sure you've got them, but say something factual. It's not, no tickets have been submitted today. It's, no tickets are currently present in the database. We are assuming no tickets have been submitted today. Make sure that the things you say are factual, informative, and realistic.
And the phrase, unless there's something I don't know about, is very helpful. It's helpful in your own mind because it makes you think about like, oh wait, can tickets be deleted? It's helpful to say out loud because it encourages other folks, especially the more junior folks, to actually question you, to question what you're saying, to think about the problem, to engage their critical thinking skills.
Don't stop until you can tell the whole story supported with facts. Every person in this room, every one of you is a subject matter expert. Some of you are subject matter experts in Elixir, in development, in audiovisual work. Everything you want to tell people, you need to be able to support it. If you come to me and you say, I fixed the problem, I'm like, but did you though? I want to hear what the problem was, how you fixed it. Give me a glimpse into your brilliance.
Because if you push something up and all of a sudden the problem's not occurring anymore and you don't know why, you don't know if it's going to happen again tomorrow. So you want to be able to tell that whole story.
Some production incidents are ephemeral. Sometimes they only happen once in a while, occasionally. Spoiler alert, your database is full.
Oh yeah. You're going to want to cycle some of that. Fix the issue to the full extent that it warrants. Sometimes it's a quick fix. Sometimes it's a large bug that's going to take all day. Sometimes it is a major flaw in your architecture that you're going to want to consider along with your leadership.
We're not going to be able to rewrite how our account system works. I can't sit here and authorize us to just dive in and fix our access control. We can have that conversation about it, but sometimes we have to say this risk is acceptable and we're going to continue doing this until the sky falls on us. And that feels not amazing.
Yeah, doing a quick fix and then moving on when you know that there's a more fundamental issue going on feels bad, but having your organization be able to meet its goals is better than not feeling bad.
All right, this is our final law. The fifth law of Detective Hat might be the most important one. Learn something new every single time.
It's no use fixing a production issue if you're not going to learn anything from it. A book that I enjoyed said, if failure comes and beats you up, get right back up, sneak up behind it, and pick its pockets. You have paid for this issue. Either in downtime or in the time that your developers use to fix it, learn everything that you can from it, grow your organization, grow your people.
I have consultancies in my background, so I will often look at a meeting and be like, this meeting cost $1 million. Huh, interesting. So think about your production incidents in the value that you can get from them. Learn something, figure something out. And if what you learn is, oh, this is the third time this has happened, maybe it is time to fix how your account system works.
The postmortem is a great way to do this. Following through on tomorrow's problems, adding the observability you wish you had, gets you from a situation where you're really good at production incidents because it's happening all the time and you're a firefighter at this point, to we're at smooth sailing and I don't need these skills as much anymore.
And that, my friends, is the Detective Hat. We've talked about what production issues are and how we can start to really conceptualize them.
We talked about the fact that you got to change your mindset from one that's expansive to one that's contractive for these issues.
We've talked about write it down. It's not real. You can't hand it off unless it is written down in a space that is open and collaborative.
We've talked about keeping in mind that all production incidents are a failure of process, that we have to believe that there is a problem when somebody brings it to us until we can prove it's not, and really chasing that down.
And then we talked about communication and follow through. Make sure that your production incidents have an end. They need an exit clause. How are we getting out of this? What are we communicating about while we're in it? And what's the follow through look like? Good work, detective. Our users will sleep better tonight knowing their connections are safe.
Thanks, I appreciate your support. There's just one thing though. I'm not a detective, I quit that game. I'm just a regular dev with regular dev problems.
Of course you are, Dev. Of course you are. Until the next time.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you all!